I thought that would be super interesting to share some insights. And now, as we always do, what we have recently done in these conferences, I thought I'd invite up the two gentlemen who started off the conference, who sat through most of it, to come and share their reflections on what are the key takeaways from the conference. So if you gentlemen could grab a seat. Now, I actually want to just take this a little bit up a little bit. We've recorded all the sessions, so I thought I'll take a note out of Malcolm McCallion's book, and I'd use Notebook LM. I actually, just before, so it's up to date as of 2 sessions ago, asked Notebook LLM, based on all the audio, what are the takeaways from this conference? So I'm going to put them up on the screen. I want to get your thoughts about 2 things. 1, do you agree? What are we missing? And 2, what are your thoughts on the fact that Notebook LM is going to replace us? Okay?
Sounds fun.
Anyway, it's a bit of fun. Here we go. 5 key conference takeaways. Okay? No harm in having a shot at this. That's what we're here for. Okay, the first... Oh, sorry, you guys can read it here.
Yeah,
just because it's going to be a bit easier to read it on my iPad. The real estate industry transformation. Traditional listings aggregation is no longer sustainable. This is what Notebook LM thinks. Challenges, increased competition, accessible data, evolving consumer expectations. Implication: portals must innovate beyond the listings to offer more complete real estate ecosystem. Okay, what are your thoughts on that first takeaway?
I don't think it's very profound. Look, I think you can't differentiate just by having all the listings, but that's been the case in the US since year 0. I do agree that you need to innovate and create value from those listings. And what's been manifest during this whole conference is quite how helpful AI is becoming in making those listings more valuable to agents who are marketing them and the people, the end buyers who they're marketing them to.
Your thoughts, Jonathan?
So I'm actually still a believer that the portal model and the core of portal businesses is going to be the strongest factor for the next 5 to 10 years. And it does seem to me it's important to innovate, but I come back to the fact that I look at businesses like REA, and 20% of their revenue comes from services that are outside of the core, and only 10% of their profit probably comes from services that are outside of the core. So, if I look at future growth, 60-70% is going to be in the core. The one kind of big question is the Andy Florance question, really, because if he's right and he can destroy, Rightmove by investing a shed load of money or destroy Zillow, then that totally transforms the valuation and the business of pretty much every number one around. And then you get into a kind of much more scary, much more interesting kind of world. And I still don't think it'll happen, but I kind of, I would have said I was a 10% believer in Andy could make it work before this. I'm maybe a 20% having heard him talk about it. I'm still not on that side, but I think it's the big challenge.
I think the one thing that's clear with what CoStar is doing is they're passionate about looking after the agent, which I think there's a lot of merit in that. I think we should not underestimate, the power of thinking about that customer group and making sure they're having a fantastic experience and leveraging the fact that probably over the last 10 to 15 years, they probably, whether they have or have not been screwed, put it bluntly, right? They probably feel like they have in that process. And that's whether it isn't true or not, if that's the impression and they can leverage that to their advantage in growing a truly competitive player, then it might impact those market leaders.
So one of the areas I beg to differ is I think that the treatment of agents by portals in Europe is very different. I mean, we don't have this whole competition between buy-side and sell-side agents, which you have in the US, and it's a fundamentally different thing. And, I have enormous respect for Andy and what he's trying to do, and I love the fact that he's breathing life and competition to the sector. But my starting premise is that agents actually are getting a lot of value out of portals. And I think, I hope I helped to explain in my presentation that it's not simply about charging more and more for the same ad each year. There's been a magnitude of changes in terms of the tools which the platforms are giving you, if you're prepared to pay for them, to make you get more leads and to convert them faster and better.
Yes. Okay, let's look at the second key takeaway that my friend Notebook LM has come up with. And it's basically saying the incredibly insightful AI's transformative potential. Okay, it's about AI. I guess if you say AI enough times in every presentation, it's going to come up as a key theme. Okay, and it's saying AI can optimize operations, create engaging user experiences, and unlock new revenue streams. Key areas: personalization, recommendations, automation, virtual tours, targeted advertising. The challenges: strategic integration of AI while maintaining trust and transparency.
So it seems to me very clear that where AI is already making a substantial impact is in operational stuff. And that, if you kind of drew a conclusion out of that, that's what ChatGPT seems to be saying. It seems to me that AI is an opportunity. It's not a disruptive threat, not for the near term. You know, maybe in an 8 to 10 year time frame when things get really exciting around the technology. And it seems to me that it's a real opportunity to do things in a much more effective way and actually engage agents in a much more effective way, because you can do a lot more for agents. You don't need the bodies to do it, and that's much more in line with a traditional marketplace model. So I think there's some truth in that summary.
So AI is actually helping to make agents better at looking after their customers. And I think if we go back 10 years, we were talking about, agents aren't picking up the phones, they're not responding to leads, and a lot of cliches which I'm sure don't apply to all, but certainly apply to some. And I think one of the most exciting things about AI is it's going to help agents get better at helping the people whose homes they're selling or renting.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. And actually, I've got, because I then asked the question, because the beauty is once you've uploaded everything, I can just ask whatever question I like, right? I did ask the question, who was the most controversial speaker? And you should see what it came back with, okay? But what is interesting is I then asked it, what are the best uses of AI? And I'll show you those after we've talked about these trends. Let's look at the next one, which they've got up here. Number 3 was data as an asset and liability. Opportunities: leverage data for insights and innovative services. Risks: proprietary data while utilizing open source and third-party data effectively.
So to me, data is an absolute asset. It's something you should absolutely be in. It's crucial in terms of how you use these new technologies, which really allow you to use it in a much better way. And if you really want a defense against the personal assistants that are coming in 5 to 10 years' time, and the Googles and so on, actually having a rich data environment that is unique and your own is a very powerful defense against those kind of threats. I don't see data as a risk. I mean, clearly there are elements of day-to-day risk with data, but it doesn't feel to me that it's something that's a real challenge.
Data is a short word, and it means a ton of different things to different people. I think the volumes, if you look at the assets, the data assets of a Rightmove, they've got more than 2 decades of listing information, and of what is even more interesting, it's the interactivity between the cookies of people looking at stuff and what they've liked and what they've hovered on and what they haven't. And I think you can learn so much about property markets, about what kinds of search and result displays have achieved what kinds of engagement and connectivity. I won't bore you with all the details, but there is so much insight there. And I think, one reason why I was quite relaxed about the challenges from, non-existing portals coming in with some smart AI, it's precisely because when you don't have that amount of data, it's much harder to become relevant and provide a better service in linking home buyer to object available.
Yeah, and I agree, man. Without the data, I couldn't have pulled this together, right? If you think about it, right? This is literally feeding off just what everyone has talked about. So I think that underlying data, and I think proprietary data will be quite critical in this, because it will then give you a source of differentiation. And I think when Hannah had that question around what data would she love to get, which was that next level of data within those CRM systems. Who has those CRM systems? The agents. And they're the ones who should be able to draw the insights and pull them out and which gives them a much better level of engagement with the buyer, the seller, the renter, and the landlord in the process.
And there's a whole interesting question of how do you make portals, how can you get portals to be able to access that CRM data? I mean, clearly, in many markets, agents really don't want the CRM to be owned by the portals for quite obvious reasons. But can you gain access to the data within the CRM in a way you can really use it powerfully with AI? I think is a really interesting question, and I don't know what the solution on that is.
Let's look at the next one, a customer-centric approach, and I think that can be both a consumer and agent. So I think that sort of blends the both here. And it says, user experience focus, intuitive design, high-quality visuals, and AI-powered personalization are essential for engagement. And I think that word engagement is probably the most, one of the more valuable things that I think came out of this is about how do I get better engagement with consumers with a listing, more immersive, find out who's a real buyer, who's truly a lead worth executing against, and getting engagement at the agent end as well.
I mean, engagement starts with having the right content, right? And again, we can be a little bit critical of how rapidly or how slowly portals have evolved. But one thing that's clearly evolved is the accuracy and volume of information around listings, plus the ability of the portals to enhance it with, for example, local area information and so on. So I think that's a huge difference. And then what we're getting with AI is a much better ability to personalize that information to the user. And that, obviously, you'll get much more engaged with the platform when what it's coming up with is more suited to what interests you. And the second dimension, and I touched on it a little bit in my talk, is the different ways you can engage with that information, right? So we've all grown up in the kind of search and filters world, whereas it looks like a number of portals are trying to make that same interface work through, for example, for a purely chatbot or chat-enabled interface.
Yeah, I think that level of innovation, and I think, and I spoke about this, maybe it was last year, I've forgotten when it was, portals have to adapt to the needs of their consumer base. And if they're talking to us more grey-haired gentlemen, it might be a fielded-based search that we're more comfortable with because that's what for the last 20 years we've done. You're chatting with or you're engaging with the younger generation. They don't want to go to a website. They want to do it via a chat interface. They want instantaneous information. They all have ADHD, if you ask me, right? They want to know what's available. Can I get it now? Can I move in? Can I do this? Can I do that? And that requires a different level of interaction.
It's interesting. Malcolm said that look to the jobs market for the future. And I was talking to one of the largest jobs portals in the world recently. And I was given the stunning fact that, we talk all the time about search as if search is the thing, but more than 50% of their job applications now do not come from search. They come from interactions that are generated through notifications, through very fine targeting of the right jobs at the right people. They can now, because of AI, they have what they call much stronger permission to send notifications to people because they're getting the right jobs, they're getting them at the right time, they can do it more frequently, and they're much more accepted. And I think we've kind of got to move slightly away from thinking that search is the game and to begin, and it comes back to the data point as well, to thinking actually, how do I get the right thing to the right person at the right time? Because there are lots of other mechanisms, and knowing my customer and being able to interact in the right way is powerful. And again, when you come back to the threats, the threats are from new forms of search. Actually, if you own the customers and you know them and you're targeting them, you can communicate outside of search and bring a lot more of your lead generation in that way. That's a real valuable asset.
Yep, no, I agree with that. Now, the last of the key conclusions that my mate came up with, it's the importance of collaboration, building partnerships with real estate agents, offer tools and marketing support, prop tech companies, accessing innovative technologies to stay ahead of the competitors. Is that sort of a statement of the obvious, right?
It's hard to disagree with it, isn't it? I mean, you're not going to do it all on your own, therefore you're going to do it with partnerships. Yeah. I mean, that's the problem about using large language models, isn't it, Simon? You do get a lot of platitudes that come out of it.
I know, but it started the conversation. So on top of these, what are the other conclusions that you gentlemen came up with?
So can I add one point on that last one? I mean, one of the things that struck me is, when I look at what some portals are doing, they're beginning to develop an agent services layer. And I come back to that point, in an ideal world, you'd love to have 100% CRM fully owned and integrated and whatever, and all those things. But actually, I think some portals are beginning to creep gently into the services that are provided by CRMs by providing agent services. And REA is clearly in that direction. So I think there is a lot you can do that really locks your clients in more and helps your clients more by developing a services layer.
Yeah, it's the way I think about it, it's like a pendulum. They went one way, it's all about the listings, advertising, and so on. Wait, let's buy a CRM system. Whoosh to the other side. Oh, wait, we've gone too far. The agents are a little bit skeptical. We're in their business, and we're probably out of our depth in terms of managing a SaaS business.
Yep.
Different. So then they go back. They sell their CRM systems, right? So they go back towards the advertising. But now they're slowly coming back, but they're adding on lead refining type services, chat bots, all the other elements that part of which you got on your CRM system, or that broader set of tools. And they're just slowly, as you're right, slowly slicing off, getting a little bit deeper.
But also leveraging the things the portal can do that the CRM can't do to make those tools kind of particularly valuable.
Yes.
I mean, just the idea of being able to provide more value on leads. I think it was Imran who was talking about their ability to enhance leads, and that's at the interface when that moves into the agent CRM is an incredibly important handover moment. And the more you can tell about the value of that lead, how often the person's looked at the home, it just raises the value of it tremendously.
So what other key themes did you two gentlemen pick up in the conference that my mate didn't?
One for me is the interesting challenge of being a number two. Number ones are incrementally getting ahead, proportionately as well as in absolute terms. And one of the things that struck me was, that there are a fair number of strategies for incrementally improving your business, and a lot of them are kind of, they're kind of hard work, fine detail stuff, but you can actually make these incremental gains on number ones, and you can actually push to a stronger position. And I think that's something we probably don't explore enough and think about enough. So that struck me, but being a number two is bloody difficult, pardon my language.
Yes, and I think it's about, you've got to be really clear on what your mission number two is. And I think when we heard Tony Blamey talk about it, said, like, we gave up the race for number one. Yeah. We knew we're never going to get there, so we want to be a profitable number two. We're going to operate that 30, 40, maybe 50% EBITDA margin, and we'll find those markets that we can be profitable in and not worry about the rest. And that, to me, is about clarity of strategy as a number two versus, I'm going to take on the number one. Well, you might belt your head against a brick wall for the next 20 years.
Yes, but I mean, look at the Zoopla example in the UK, right? They worked out early on they weren't going to beat Rightmove in terms of core agent subscriptions. They spent a lot of time becoming a utilities marketplace. I'm not sure it's made them a better business. I'm a huge believer in the power of number ones, especially the ones, if you remember my slide, which have 3x plus traffic relative market share. I think it's extremely difficult to upset that. And when we talked about, Casa Immobiliare, these ones were probably closer sooner. So I think when you only have a small difference between two players, then clearly leadership has less value and is more vulnerable. When you have 3x, I think you have to make a lot of mistakes, like not adopting to some of the tools which we've been talking about in order to lose that position. But Andy's going to try and prove me wrong by spending a lot of money on marketing.
Oh yeah, and it'll be billions of dollars by looks. And he's going to rebrand on the market to homes.com by the sounds of it, or is it homes.co.uk?
Don't spoil their announcement.
Oh, I didn't spoil it. He was driving Manchester, the football team in EPL to the homes.com stadium. Okay. Any other major themes that you picked up?
Well, the biggest one for me, which I kind of said slightly earlier, is, if Andy succeeds, it will totally change this industry in every way. Actually, in terms of if he doesn't succeed, it will also change the industry, because it will have kind of been proven that the number ones are absolutely solid against any form of attack from other similar industry players.
Yes.
And actually it'll further help their valuation and position and how they move forward.
It'll probably demonstrate the power of the brand.
Yep.
The Rightmove brand withstood all this marketing. The Zillow brand withstood all this marketing assault, and it just
Yeah, I mean,
continues.
it's not going to be binary, right? We're going to see will especially on the market or the new homes, this market share grow meaningfully over a number of years. I think we shouldn't expect too much too quickly. But
Yeah, but it's good fun to comment on. Okay, so quickly, then I asked the question, what are the top uses of AI, right? The beauty is when you have all the data in there, you just start asking whatever questions. And it came back for users. We've got users, agents and brokers, and then, oh, sorry guys, I've now screwed us up here. Okay, here we go. Okay, well, I've lost it. No, I haven't. Here it is. Thank you. Right, got users, agents and brokers, and portals themselves. So the top users here for users, that'll be useful if I get to the right point, curated property matches, immersive property experiences, virtual tours, 3D models, the prop text type stuff, interactive staging, etc. Always-on assistance, we talked about, even if, and that example for the restaurant booking for, I can't remember who that was, and smarter search. I think all of them are pretty obvious.
Yeah, I'm not sure those are the biggest uses. I think Edmund's point about internal looking so small on the chart, actually, I think there's a huge amount going on under the surface in mechanisms and, what you can gain from data, how you use images, how you can improve the whole experience of personalization around people. All of that, I think, doesn't necessarily come out in this list as strongly. And I think at the moment we're in the under the surface, make the machine work better phase, rather than a fundamental change of the consumer experience.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, changing how you connect a person with a property is going to be fundamental, right? We talked about all those different dimensions. At the moment, it's just about location, size, price, and bringing lifestyle, bringing in, this is my kind of place through personalization. This will change things dramatically. And what I think is very exciting is that you will get completely new ideas about what kind of property could be right for you, which I think in turn means the portal is adding more value.
So I'm kind of, I can see, more value at the top of funnel, exactly what you say, finding the places and whatever. And I can see more value at the bottom of the funnel. I've got a filtered list. I now want to find which are the ones that really appeal to me in different ways. But I think in property search, FOMO is huge. People really want to see the range, see what's out there. And so for me, my suspicion is that the filtered search will stay pretty solid for a while. What we'll see is complements to it rather than a replacement of it. And actually, trying to search with a natural language search, doing it, typing, etc., is quite long-winded relative to that. And I think it gets more interesting when we get to voice-based search, and then later on, mixed media search, where you've got voice and you get images coming back in a dynamic fashion. That's going to be interesting.
Plus more learning from the ones you do click on to come up with other recommendations. Some of the dating apps are quite good at that.
Yes.
So I hear.
We won't mention it to your wife, don't worry. Okay, so here, now what AI for, whoops, I missed this one. AI for, is it going to go back? Yes, AI for users, AI for portals, and it's around the wrong way. Okay, AI for portals. This is talking about high potential lead identification, data-driven market expertise, and workflow automation. So I think that's the stuff that you were touching on before.
Yeah, and
under the cover.
And I think that is hugely important. I think how you really begin to target much more effectively is one of the highest value things you can do as a portal. That's where I'd be putting my AI bucks.
Yep, I agree. And then the last lists were all about for brokers and agents, about content generation at scale, platform integrity and trust, which defects and flags for fraudulent user listings, etc. That makes sense, although that's probably more for the portals themselves. And dynamic pricing for revenue optimization. Once again, I think my mate here has sort of got a little confused, and that I would put for the AI agents and brokers and the property portals themselves into one big bucket, because they're really all related to the portals themselves.
Yeah. But I think, things like content generation at scale for a portal, there's a real opportunity in terms of those encroaching services into the agent world to use what you know from your data on the portal about what's really effective at getting traffic and business to the agent to begin to make some of those services the preserve of the portal rather than the preserve of the CRM environment. I think those are kind of the interesting things. And can you use them then to lock in your agents in a more sophisticated way?
Maybe portals will start rewriting the listings on behalf of agents, saying that this kind of wording converts better than that.
Yes.
Yeah.
And actually, I was talking to someone the other day. I cannot remember who it was. They're not at the conference. I know that much. And they were doing that. They were actually using the interaction of consumers with the listing to go back to the agent to recommend how to rewrite this to make it more engaging.
Yep. And that brings the agent into your environment to take more services. So it's a win-win all round.
Yes. Gentlemen, thank you very much, because we're nearly at the top of the hour and everyone would like to disappear off back home. So thank you very much for your insights. Thank you for opening the conference, and thank you for chatting about the themes, the trends, and the insights we've gained from this conference.
And thank you for a great conference, Simon.
Thank you.
Simon.
Thanks, Jonathan. Thank you, Noel.